Welcome to this video about the most mysterious abilities of Buddhist monks that psychology cannot explain. In this video, we will explore some of the incredible abilities that Buddhist monks supposedly developed through years of meditation and spiritual practices. But before we dive into the details, let's give a brief introduction to Buddhist practice and philosophy to better understand the background of these abilities. Buddhism is one of the oldest and most influential religions in the world, based on the teachings of the Buddha. The core practices of Buddhism include meditation, mindfulness, and compassion. These practices are meant to help reduce human suffering and achieve higher consciousness and spiritual insight. With this understanding in mind, let's now delve deeper into the mysterious abilities that some Buddhist monks have reportedly attained. Surely you have heard of telepathy, the ability to transmit thoughts and emotions directly from one person to another without the need for verbal communication. In the Buddhist tradition, telepathy is described as one of many paranormal abilities that can be developed through years of meditation and spiritual practices. For many people, this is hard to imagine and some consider it nonsense. However, there are reports of Buddhist monks who allegedly possess telepathic abilities and have demonstrated these abilities under scientific control. There are also a variety of theories and explanatory approaches that question the existence of telepathy or provide alternative explanations. Some of these theories relate to unconscious nonverbal communication or the ability to read and interpret subtle nonverbal cues rather than actually experiencing thought transmission. Nevertheless, the phenomenon of telepathy remains an interesting and controversial topic that continues to be investigated and researched. There are numerous reports of Buddhist monks who allegedly possess telepathic abilities. One famous example is the Tibetan monk Geshe Lama Khanchog, who demonstrated his telepathic abilities in a scientific experiment conducted at the Menninger Clinic in Topeka, Kansas, USA, in 1974. Khanchog was able to transmit thoughts from one person to another, even when they were spatially separated. In another experiment conducted by the Russian psychologist V.M. Lomonosov, a Buddhist monk was shown a sequence of images while his brain activity was measured. The results showed that the monk's brain activity immediately responded to the images, as if he had already seen them, even though they had not been physically presented to him. However, there are also skeptical voices that question these experiments and consider the ability to telepathy as unscientific and unproven. Nevertheless, the alleged telepathic abilities of Buddhist monks remain a fascinating and controversial topic that continues to be investigated and discussed. There are various scientific explanations for the phenomenon of telepathy in Buddhist monks. One possible explanation is that the monks are able to read and interpret subtle nonverbal signals and cues that go unnoticed by other people. For example, tiny changes in body posture, facial expression, or eye movements of a person could give clues about their thoughts and emotions that could be recognized by an experienced observer. Another explanation for telepathy is based on a type of unconscious nonverbal communication, where people can connect with each other on a subtle level. There is much evidence that people communicate unconsciously with each other, even when they are not directly speaking to each other. For example, people can sense the mood and emotions of others, even if they are not explicitly verbalized. A third explanation for telepathy in Buddhist monks is based on the idea that they have improved their perceptual abilities through years of meditation and spiritual practices. It is believed that meditation increases the ability for empathy and intuition, allowing the monks to perceive the thoughts and emotions of others in a more subtle and intuitive way. Despite these explanations, the phenomenon of telepathy in Buddhist monks remains controversial, and there is still much research needed to better understand its existence and origins. Psychokinesis is a concept that refers to the ability to influence material objects or events through pure mental power, without physical contact or energy transfer. There are various types of psychokinesis, including telekinesis, in which objects are moved by the mind, and pyrokinesis, in which heat and fire are generated by the mind. Psychokinesis is a controversial and disputed concept that many scientists consider to be pseudoscientific and unproven. However, there are also reports and experiments that suggest that at least some forms of psychokinesis can actually occur. In the Buddhist tradition, there are also stories of monks who allegedly possess psychokinetic abilities, such as the ability to move objects with the mind or even destroy physical objects through sheer willpower. However, it is important to note that these claims have often not been scientifically verified and should therefore be approached with caution. There are reports and stories of Buddhist monks who allegedly possess psychokinetic abilities, such as the ability to move objects with the mind or to destroy physical objects through sheer willpower. One well-known example is the so-called Yangtze, a child regarded by Buddhist monks as the reincarnation of a famous master and allegedly capable of moving objects with the mind. Although such reports and stories exist, there are no scientific studies to confirm these claims. It is also possible that reports of psychokinetic abilities are based on misunderstandings or misinterpretations of observations. In the scientific community, there are different explanations for the phenomenon of psychokinesis. Some scientists believe that psychokinetic phenomena are based on unconscious movements or actions performed by people without their awareness. Others believe that psychokinetic phenomena are due to the influence of electromagnetism or other physical forces. However, there is no unified scientific explanation for the phenomenon of psychokinesis, and most scientists still regard it as unconfirmed or even unlikely. It remains an interesting but controversial topic that continues to be researched and discussed. Astral travel is a concept referring to the experience of leaving the body and traveling to another dimension or level of consciousness. During astral travel, it is believed that the consciousness is able to leave the physical body and move freely to explore various locations or connect with other forms of consciousness. In Buddhist philosophy, astral travel is viewed as a form of meditation that allows for deeper insights into the nature of reality. Some Buddhist practices, such as tummo meditation, involve techniques that are said to help induce the astral state of consciousness. There are also reports of people encountering spiritual beings or spiritual places during astral travel. These experiences can be very personal and hold profound spiritual meaning for the individual. It is important to note that the concept of astral travel has not been scientifically proven and is considered pseudoscientific by many skeptics. Some scientists believe that experiences of astral travel are due to hallucinatory states or psychological factors. Despite the controversy and skepticism, the concept of astral travel remains a fascinating topic that many people view as a way to gain deeper insights into the nature of reality. There are reports of Buddhist monks claiming to be able to perform astral travel and separate their consciousness from their physical body. One well-known example is the Buddhist monk Ajahn Mun Buddhadatta, who was allegedly able to enter the astral state and achieve spiritual enlightenment. It is important to emphasize that there are no scientific studies confirming these claims. Therefore, it is possible that such experiences are based on subjective sensations or misinterpretations of experiences. In the scientific community, there are various attempts to explain the phenomenon of astral travel. Some scientists believe that astral travel is due to an altered state of consciousness that can be triggered by perception of sensory stimuli or hallucinations. Others believe that astral travel can be induced by stimulation of certain brain regions or by triggering neurotransmitters such as DMT or serotonin. However, there is no uniform scientific explanation for the phenomenon of astral travel, and it remains a controversial and largely unexplored topic. While some people consider these experiences to be spiritual or transcendent, others regard them as mere delusions or fantasies. The concept of reincarnation is a central teaching in many Buddhist traditions. It states that the soul or consciousness is reborn in a new body after the physical body dies. The process of reincarnation is often referred to as the cycle of suffering, which is caused by attachment to worldly things and the lack of enlightenment. The idea that consciousness continues after death and manifests in another body is also found in other cultures and religions. However, in Buddhism, it is emphasized that this process is not accompanied by a permanent soul or identity, but rather the consciousness merely transitions from one body to the next. The notion of reincarnation plays an important role in the Buddhist search for spiritual enlightenment. By recognizing the impermanence of the body and understanding the cycle of suffering, one can attempt to free themselves from the attachments and illusions of life and reach nirvana. It is important to emphasize that there is no scientific evidence for the existence of reincarnation, and it remains a controversial topic. However, for many people, the idea of reincarnation is an important spiritual belief and a source of hope and encouragement. There are many stories of Buddhist monks claiming to have memories of past lives. Some of these monks allegedly have detailed memories of events and places they have never experienced before. They sometimes describe personality traits or talents that can be associated with a previous life. It is important to emphasize that it is difficult to verify such stories, and that there can also be alternative explanations. Some skeptical scientists argue that these memories can be influenced by current culture and beliefs, or that they are simply the result of wishful thinking or fantasy. Nevertheless, there are some scientific approaches that try to explain the possibility of reincarnation. Some researchers argue that the idea of reincarnation can be supported by the theory of information transfer. This theory states that consciousness is stored as information and that this information can be picked up again in a new body after death. Other scientists argue that the idea of reincarnation can be supported by a kind of collective memory. This theory states that there may be a kind of universal memory that stores all experiences and memories that have ever been made. In this way, some people may be able to access information that others experienced in the past. It is important to emphasize that these theories are controversial and that there is no scientific evidence for the existence of reincarnation. But for many people, the idea of reincarnation is an important spiritual belief and a source of hope and comfort. The concept of enlightenment is a central part of Buddhism. It refers to a state of complete awakening in which a person has seen through all delusions and illusions and gained a deep understanding of the nature of reality. In this state, the suffering caused by clinging to egotism and worldly desires is completely overcome. There are many stories of Buddhist monks who are said to be enlightened. These monks are often referred to as bodhisattvas and are revered as spiritual teachers and role models. Some of them are also referred to as arhats, meaning they have attained nirvana, the state beyond all duality and suffering. However, enlightenment is a highly individual and subjective state that is difficult to define and measure. There is no objective method to prove whether someone is enlightened or not. Therefore, many Buddhist traditions emphasize the importance of personal experience and self-realization. In the Buddhist tradition, there are many practices and techniques aimed at purifying the mind and expanding consciousness. These practices include meditation, ethical behavior, study of Buddhist teachings, and service to others. It is believed that these practices can help to clear the mind and create the conditions for enlightenment. Ultimately, enlightenment is a goal that is of central importance to many Buddhist monks and practitioners. It is a goal that can only be achieved through continuous practice and personal experience. And although it is difficult to define and measure, it remains an important ideal for many people on the path of spiritual growth and realization. There is no scientific explanation for the state of enlightenment in the Buddhist tradition. The exploration of consciousness and spirituality is a relatively new field of research that still leaves many questions unanswered. However, some researchers have attempted to study the state of enlightenment from a scientific perspective. It is believed that the state of enlightenment is associated with certain brain activities and patterns. There is evidence that long-term meditation practices can lead to structural changes in the brain. Furthermore, there are also studies on the effects of meditation and mindfulness on physical and mental well-being. It has been found that meditation practices can reduce stress and promote physical health. However, these attempts at explanation are not able to fully explain the state of enlightenment. The exploration of consciousness and spirituality is a very complex and controversial research field that raises many questions and is far from fully explored. Therefore, it remains a central part of the Buddhist tradition that enlightenment is a state of personal experience and self-realization that can be achieved through continuous practice and devotion. In this video, we explored some of the most mysterious abilities of Buddhist monks that cannot be fully explained by psychology. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.